Okie dokie, right, we might as well make a start as it's 2 minutes past 6. So thank you again to those people that have joined us. I will just share my screen and I'll talk you through the PowerPoint. We're going to talk about phonics, how reading at school is going to change a little bit, and then I'll spend a few minutes just showing you how to use the new online system for reading. Now, Mrs. Horton has warned me as well that the power, so I will do my best to just pause for a couple of seconds as I change each slide just to make sure that it's caught up with me. So as you know, this evening we've asked you to join us so we can talk about phonics and reading at Park Spring. There have been lots of changes over the past few months that have come from the government. So they've wanted us to change in school how we teach and deliver phonics. So similar in the way that they are ran, but it's kind of more specific. So that's why we've had to go with a scheme, because the government has encouraged us, every school, to choose a phonics scheme. So we've gone with Little Wandle letters and sounds. As I mentioned in the letter that you received a couple of weeks ago, we've used a document called Letters and Sounds for the past 15 years, but obviously, you know, that does need updating and changes have come into place, but we decided to go with Little Wandle because it is kind of most similar to one's document, so there haven't been as many changes as there would have been if we'd have potentially gone with another scheme. Mrs. Horton and myself went to another local school who have been using Little Wandle for a few months, and they, you know, really bigged it up and said how well they were using it, and how, you know, it was having a really massive impact on the children and their reading ability. So once we'd done some research around it, that's why we also decided to go with Little Wandle. So as you can see, so a love of reading is the biggest indicator of future academic success. So there's lots of research that has gone into how reading impacts you know, both children and adults in later life, and reading is that key skill that we need to develop in young children so that they are then set on the path for later life as being good, competent readers, as it's, you know, what we all need to get by, really. So kind of linking to that, how many times you have already read today, okay? So in some of your jobs, in your home life, you know, it's just a requirement for just getting by on a day-to-day basis. So just thinking about that, you know, if you've got a mobile phone, you're reading. If you've got a laptop, computer, you're reading things, watching the TV guides, everything like that. We are constantly reading. When we're going to cook our tea tonight, you might be reading instructions. So it is just a life skill that everybody needs, and it's so important that we develop that with children, and can read, but also so that they enjoy reading, and they can get so much more from that as well. So in order to teach reading at school, we obviously do this through phonics. So this is probably different to how you and I were taught to read when we were at primary school. I know that I wasn't taught phonics, but it is proven to be the most successful way of teaching children to read. And we've been teaching phonics in school now for a good many years, you know, about 15 years. This is the approach that we now use, and it has been proven to be the most successful with all children. So as I've already said, and it's a systematic synthetic phonics program to teach early reading and spelling. So systematic synthetic phonics just means that words are broken up into their smallest unit of sounds. And then those sounds are blended together to read, and the sounds are taught in a certain order, so that we gradually build up our ability to read. So that's all that systematic synthetic phonics means, really. So it does sound a little bit complicated, but it really isn't. So in phonics, we make connections with the word letters that are used to write them down. Right, so the video to share with you now, which is just showing how we teach blending to read in school. So it's just a 1-minute video, and all of these videos that I'm sharing tonight, we will put links on the website to these, so you will be able to access them at a later date.
In Phonics, your child is taught to recognise the connections between the sounds in our spoken words, phonemes, and the letters that are used to write them down, graphemes. For example, they are taught that T is written like this, I is written like this, and N is written like this. When we read, we see these letters written down and we change them back into sounds, join them together and read I, N, tin. Sounding out the graphemes in a word and blending them together is how your child is learning to read at school. We make sure we use pure sounds when we are sounding out and blending words. That means we don't say at the end of a letter. We say t, I, N, tin, not t, I, n, because that doesn't blend to say tin at all. You can check how to say the phonemes with pure sounds with our videos. All the phonemes your child will learn in reception. Thank you for listening, and thank you for helping your child to learn to read.
Okay, I'll just go back to the PowerPoint. So as you saw from that brief video, that's how we teach blending to read words. So some children learn to blend really, really quickly, and others take a little bit longer. So if you feel like your child is finding that a little bit difficult, ways that you can help at home. So we've discussed playing blending games at home is so helpful, but that doesn't need to be you know, a sit down and we're going to do this. That could simply be when you're getting ready for tea. So you can say, pick up your fork. So the children, they do all of this oral blending in school with us anyway, so they are really, really good at it. Pass me the n, and then they can do pen. Okay, so it's just all of that practicing, because if a child can all and being able to segment sounds in words and blend them together, because they're used to segmenting those sounds and thinking, how do I blend those together to read a word? So that's just a really simple way of practicing blending at home with your child without them even knowing about it. Okie dokie, so there's just some terminology here. So there are 7 words now displayed on the screen, and these are kind of the most frequent words that we provide us with a glossary with lots and lots of words on there, and we have kind of narrowed that glossary down to a 1-page glossary that we use in school. So again, that will also be available on our website on the reading page, just for you to refer to as well, and we will email that out as well. But just to briefly talk you through the meanings of these, as these are the most common ones that we use. So a phoneme is just the spoken sound. Okay, and the grapheme is that sound written down. So is the phoneme, and then it's written down as the letter T that we recognise, that is the grapheme. And then a digraph, so some of your children might have mentioned some of this terminology at home because we talk about it every day. So a digraph is 2 letters that make one sound. So for example, the ch phoneme, so it's actually got 2 letters, the C and the H, but it still only makes that one sound, ch, like in cheese. And then a trigraph, very similar, but that's actually 3 letters that make one sound. Air, A-I-R, in hair, for example. And as I said, we use that terminology daily, so the children are really good at knowing what digraphs and trigraphs are. And then a split vowel digraph, so children are taught split vowel digraphs when they approach phase 5 of phonics, so that's in year 1. So there are 5 split vowel digraphs, and the clue is in the name. So they are the vowels, so A, E, I, O, and U, and those sounds are made with the letter, the vowel, with an E as well, but then there is also a letter in between those two. Paragraph A is in the word snake, SN, and then you've got the A and the E with a K in the middle. So it's like the vowel digraph has been split and there is another sound, another letter in between that split vowel digraph. And then blend, we just use that terminology when we're talking about reading, and segment, we use that terminology when talking about spelling. So we would say to the children, oh, if you want to spell that word, segment the sounds, and I'm going to talk about that a lot. Once the children have segmented the sounds in words, they blend them together to read. So there's a really clear progression from Little Wandle of where we start teaching phonics at the start of reception, and how that progresses until the end of year 1. So this will also be on the website. So the phase 2 grapheme information sheet is relevant more to reception. And this just shows the order that we teach the sounds in, okay? So we teach 4 sound lesson on a Friday. So we will email this list home to parents so you know what we are learning. You've got access to that at home. And then these information sheets will really help you with formation and pronunciation. So you might be able to see there's a pronunciation phrase, and it actually tells you how the things in your mouth, where they should be to help you to say the sounds correctly. So for example, it says show your teeth and let the sound go. Now don't worry, I'm sure everybody is on mute, so if you go by showing your teeth, then you are pronouncing it the correct way rather than saying it like s. Okay, and we've got to be really, really careful that we do pronounce the sounds in that pure way. Another example there is ah, so it says open your mouth wide and make the ah sound at the back of your mouth. So ah, 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 like that. Okay, so it's a really, really handy sheet there to make sure there's home, and then also if you're helping your child to do any writing at home, then there's the formation phrase there as well to help the children with correct formation, making sure they're starting letters in the correct place. So gradually over time, your child learns the entire alphabetic code. Okay, so as I said, this starts at the start of reception and then finishes at the end of year 1. Now, this year especially, this will go on. It started with Wandle letters and sounds midway through the year, and it has got slight differences. This will continue into year 2, and as year 1 parents will know, we have a phonics screening check at the end of year 1, which does check the children's knowledge of phonics up to phase 5, and then there are further phase 5 graphemes in the Little Wandle letters and sounds scheme that kind of go beyond that phonics check, and we continue to teach the children phonics up until they continue into year 2, because the children need to have had exposure to all of these sounds in order to help them to become competent readers. Okay, so in Little Wandle, there are some really lovely resources that we have bought that go alongside the scheme. So these are really specific, and your children over the next few weeks will become really, really familiar with these resources. So each sound that we teach will be with age your memory, like the astronaut here, or a phrase instead, like the boing boing, and that is the oi phoneme. Okay, so it's either a mnemonic picture or a phrase to help with memory. So this just really helps the children to recognise and remember the graphemes. And then every time we teach a new sound, so that's every day except for our review day, we also read words during the phonics lesson that contain that sound. So children. We also read tricky words in those sessions. So we start with around 3 tricky words a session, and that builds up gradually throughout reception into year 1 until they're reading about 6 tricky words a day. And those tricky words are the words that aren't phonetic and they can't necessarily be sounded out. For example, the word was. That isn't written how it is pronounced, so it doesn't fall into the way that we teach phonics. So we have to teach some of those words just as separate tricky words. In those lessons, we'll do a sentence and then sometimes writing a sentence, again containing those words that we have learned during the session. And then we have displays in the classrooms and on the tables to help with the children to remember these and to start to link together the different sounds that they have learnt. Okay, so moving on now to reading and spelling. So again, this is all part of the phonics scheme. So here, this is what some of our grapheme cards, because that is the sound written down. So the initial sounds that we teach in reception have the mnemonic, like the astronaut, have the phrase like the boing boing with the oi. But then as we move into year 1 and we introduce phase 5, we don't have those mnemonics and memory aids in such a way. So we have the grapheme cards, as you can see here, and we would introduce this phoneme E. And we would talk to the children about this being the E phoneme. So in the word each, it makes the sound E. However, E sound, and in the word break, it makes an A sound. So as the children move through year 1, they start to learn that the different graphemes have different sounds that can be made with different letters. Okay, and then this slide shows all of the different ways to write the phoneme sh. Okay, so we learn the sh phoneme in reception. Our new with the shells, and there's a picture of shells to support the children's learning with that. But then gradually, as they move through reception and year 1, they are introduced to all of these other ways to write the phoneme sh. Sorry, apologies. So as you can see in the word chef, the phoneme is made with the CH, that grapheme. Then there's a different way of writing it in special, and in caption, mansion, and passion. So you can see there are lots of elements that kind of this phonics, and that's why the children go through this process of learning systematic synthetic phonics, and as they becoming more and more confident and competent through year 1, that's when the more complicated and more sounds are introduced to the children as well, because if they were to read this you know, at the end of reception, they might read that as chef, but actually they get introduced to it as being a sh sound in the word chef. Okay, so I'm now going to show another video. Okay, so again, a link to this will be available on our website.
Almost all words in the English language can be worked out using the alphabetic code that children learn at school. This is made up of 44 sounds and includes sounds like a, b, k, and a, e, and I, as well as sh, ch, and air. Many of these sounds can be spelt in a few different ways, but some of the spellings. To get children reading quickly, we teach them the most common way each sound is spelt first. They will learn some of the
Sorry everybody, I'll just try and move that.
Can be spelt in a few different ways, but some of the spellings are far more common than others. To get children reading quickly, we teach them the most common way each sound is spelt first. They will learn some of the more unusual ways of spelling sounds later in the Letters and Sounds programme. But there are just a few with unusual spellings that children teach, even in the early stages. Words like he, said and was. We call these tricky words and teach them as we go along. When we teach tricky words, we show the children which bit of the word is the tricky part. Here's an example. Children learn the letter E makes the sound E because in most words it makes that sound. Think about the words fed, bed, read and shed. But the word we is a tricky word because it's not making the sound that the children have been taught so far. E. In this word, the letter says E. So the word is we. Another tricky word is was. Both the middle and the final letters are tricky. This letter says O, and this letter says Z. So we read the word as was. We teach the most common tricky words first. These are the ones that children will often come across in their reading books. Your child will learn how to read and spell tricky words become familiar with and can read and spell them confidently. If you find they are struggling to remember a certain tricky word, ask them to write on a post-it note and stick it where they will see it a lot. Keep asking them to read the word. If you need to, remind them of the tricky part. This will help them to remember it.
Okay, so as it was said there in that video, so some words might be tricky to the children to start. As we move through the teaching of phonics, they might not be tricky anymore, because as they get to the end of year one, the children will be taught that the that they are used to actually can make the sound E in the word we and he and be and she. However, at this point in the year, the children see that as w, and that's the tricky part. So some words aren't tricky, but then, as I mentioned earlier, a word like was or some, that they are just tricky words that can't out. So just thinking now about spelling. So the way that we teach children to spell the words and have a go is we get them to say the word out loud, think about the sounds in the word, so to segment the sounds. We use our fingers, we use our segmenting fingers for this. We then count the sounds and we write them down. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. So you will be able to see me doing this. I'm just going to model this to everybody. So if I was to want to write the word dog, okay, so I would say dog to the children. Let's think about the sounds. Og. Okay, so then we would count those on our segmenting fingers. So we would go d, o, g, like that. And then we would encourage the children to write those graphemes down. Okay, so we've got d, o, g. Okay, like that in dog. Now, if we were going to ask the children to write a word with a digraphing, so for example, the word chop, okay, we would count those sounds again on our fingers. So we would say the word chop, chop, ch, op, okay, and we would count them ch, op. So then we would say to the children, oh, right, so we've got 3 sounds in that word. Let's think about that first sound, ch. How do we write the ch sound? So then the children would be able to tell me that that is, okay, that makes the ch sound. And then we've got the op, chop. And then when we are talking about digraphs as well, so we would say ch, op, ch is made with the C and the H. We wouldn't say the K and the H, because actually in this word chop, that isn't making the K, because that would be like k, op. Okay, so we would say the ch is made with a C and a H. So the children really need to know their letter names as well as the sounds that they make. Okay, just let me share my screen again. Right. So now we're just going to move on to talk about how we teach reading in a new way of reading at home. So we teach guided reading, so we are changing our terminology there. So now, as of next week, and certainly our first week back after the half term, we are teaching the children to read through reading practice sessions. Okay, so Mrs. Horton and I have timetabled these sessions in for 3 times a week. So that is what is advised from Little Wandle, that the children. Now these are delivered in small groups, so we are very lucky that we've got lots of skilled staff members at Park Spring. So we are going to be teaching these reading practice sessions to children in groups of 6. So per class there are going to be 5 groups, and each week the children will rotate with who they are reading with. So one week they might read with one of our teaching assistants, one week they might read with myself or Mrs. Horton, another week they will read with their own class teacher. So over a 5-week period, their class teacher will have another senior member of staff like myself or Mrs. Horton. As it says there, they are taught by a trained teacher or teaching assistant. So you may remember that we had a training day a couple of weeks ago at Park Spring in January, and our whole day was dedicated to making sure that all staff took part in the Little Wandle training. So all of our staff, both teachers and teaching assistants across the school, have had the training on phonics and reading by Little Wandle. So everybody is training. So Louise and I have been supporting people with their delivery and starting to input the phonics lessons and the reading practice sessions, which we'll be doing next week, into place so that we are ready for the first week back after February half term. And as I've already said, these are taught in small groups, so we're really lucky that we can deliver these to groups of 6 children. That is what was advised by Little Wandle, because each day as you're reading with the 6 children, we can tap in to 2 of those children and really listen to those children in depth, and then the next day the other 2, and then the next day the third pair. So the children read the same book in school 3 times in a week. So the first session we work on decoding, so just sounding out the words and getting to read the book. The second session we work on prosody, which is reading with expression, so trying to use different voices for the characters and making the book sound more interesting, using our storyteller voice. And then the third session we look at comprehension. Now, we read the book 3 times in school because we want to develop the children's fluency. Okay, so children shouldn't be in the book, they shouldn't be stumbling over words, they shouldn't be having to sound out lots of words. So this is where some of the changes have come into place, because the children should be able to read the book at 90 to 95% fluency. So if we're thinking about out of 20 words, the children should be able to read 18 of those words automatically, and then may need to decode the other 2, but actually they should be able to decode and read those words. They shouldn't need any help. If they do need help, if they're needing more help for more words, then they aren't on the correct book. Behind that is that the more children see the words, the more they begin to read them automatically without having to sound them out, and reading isn't seen as something that is difficult to children. We use an assessment to match your child to the right level of book. So we've spent a lot of money and we've invested on a lot of books over the past couple of weeks. We've had staff that have been very busy kind of getting all of these books ready for us. So we've got probably about 60 or 70 new titles, and we've got 6 of each of those books. So obviously in the reading practice sessions we need 6 books, so all of the children have a copy in front of them. Make sure that your child is matched to the correct level of book, and we do that assessment every 6 weeks to check progress, and any child who is identified as needing extra support will then have daily keep up sessions that are planned for them. So reading a book at the right level. So as I've just briefly mentioned before, this means that your child should know all of the sounds and the tricky words. They should be able to read many of the words by silent blending, so that's blending in their head. and therefore their reading will seem quite automatic. It won't be disjointed, they will be fairly fluent, they're automatically able to read those words. And then, as I've already said, they only need to stop and sound out about 5% of the words by the time they bring the book home. So we've been advised that the children should be able to read the book at 90% fluency in school, and then by the time they've read it 3 times in school, when that book is sent home to you to read, they should be reading at 95% fluency. And when they bring that book home, if they do need to decode that word, they should be able to do it on their own without any help from an adult or an older sibling. Okay, so these are where some changes have come into play. So reading at home. The most important thing for us is that you read with your child. So reading a book, chatting about it, that has been proven to have a really positive impact on children's ability to understand words and sentences, use a wide range of vocabulary, and develop listening and comprehension skills. So being able to answer questions that they are asked about what they have read. And the amount of books children were exposed to by age 6 was a positive predictor of their reading ability 2 years later on. So there's lots of research around exposure to stories and to books for young children that then positively impacts as they get that little bit older and move further through school. Okay, so as I mentioned on the letter that I sent out a couple of weeks ago, the books going home, we are actually moving to ebooks for any children that are reading phonic books. So that is our children in year 1, reception, and some children in year 2 as well. So Little Wandle actually advised, they said you don't really have to send a levelled book home to parents. Please do send a book home for sharing, but because children are reading 3 times in a small group with an adult in school, it wasn't necessary for us to continue sending a levelled book home, a book that the children can read and can access. But we had a discussion about that and felt that we still wanted parents to be reading those level books with their children at home. But we are moving to do that on a website instead. So I will show you that after the presentation. So the books are exactly the same on the website. Obviously, you're not handling a physical book. It's got all of the same content on the front cover, and you flick through the pages by clicking, but we do recognise that children enjoy and adults enjoy as well having a physical book, turning the pages, getting reading books. So we are going to continue sending home one of our library books, and we will be referring to those as sharing books. Okay, so the sharing book, which is shown here, is the Gruffalo. So obviously for a reception in year 1 child, the Gruffalo would be a really difficult book for them to attempt to read. It's just not appropriate at all. However, it is a story that is aimed at young children, and we all know that they love stories like this, especially from authors like Julia. It's so important because we feel that this will give the children the will to want to read for enjoyment. So please continue reading with your child at home. When they bring the library book home, the sharing book, as I said, that is for an adult to read with them, or possibly an older sibling that might be in year 5 or year 6. We would love for children to read daily, to be exposed to stories and books daily. We understand that people that have got multiple children would be really difficult. So as I said, if there are any older siblings that can support with that, even if at bedtime, if you get a couple of minutes just to share a couple of pages from a book, and just to show that there can be so much enjoyment from reading with your child, because that is what they love. I've had a chat with some children this afternoon in various year groups about stories, about story time, and most of them said that they really enjoy story time because the teacher gets to read and they can listen. And children do really enjoy that, just enjoy it when we're really good at changing our voice for different characters and so on. So going back to the levelled book, to the phonics book. So as we've already said, your child should be able to read this book without any help. If they can't read a word, please don't let them struggle with it. Just read it to them. and then talk about the book, celebrate success, say, oh wow, look how many pages you've read, or look at all these words that you could read. If you feel the book is too hard, if they're not reading it as fluently as we've discussed this evening, then please feed that back to that come as a bit of a surprise to us, as your child will have read this to an adult 3 times a week in school anyway. That shouldn't happen, but you know, if it does, then please feed that back. So recent practice has shown that, you know, sometimes we would send a book home where the children might be sounding out lots and lots of words, but that isn't going to happen as we continue on this journey. So you might notice that your child might have changed book level. They might have gone to a level that they've previously their fluency. Okay, now we also know that it is quite a change with us moving from sending home a leveled book for your child to read and having an ebook instead. But you know, reading on a screen is one of those life skills that we're all used to, and that children will get used to as they grow up as well, because a lot of what we do is on screen. Okay, just back to phonics briefly. So when helping your child to read, if you are helping, there are some videos that show you how to pronounce the phonemes correctly. So I'm just going to play these 3 videos. They're only 1-minute clips again, and the boys here are just saying the sounds, and they are saying those pure sounds. And again, these clips will be available on our website, and it's so important that you are pronouncing these sounds correctly at home. So let me just try this. Sorry, everybody, it did this to me earlier, so I won't be a sec. Right, I'll just try it on another screen. Sorry. Oh, no, that's not what I need at the minute. Right, this toolbar is in the way. Right, okay, everybody should hopefully be able to hear it now.
Hello everyone, this is how we say our sounds. S, A, I, N, D, G, O, K, K, A, O, B, O.
Okay, so there are 3 videos that are like that one, that just tell you basically how to pronounce those sounds correctly. So we will make sure that they are available on our website. Mr. Shaw is helping me put those on the website tomorrow, so they will be on there. Okay. So our second to last slide now. So basically just talking about the sharing book again. So the shared book is for you to read to your child, and please make that story sound as exciting as you can by changing your voice. And just other ways to help at home is with just talking with your child as much as you can, introducing new and exciting language, encouraging your children to use new vocabulary, make up sentences together, find different words to use for things, describe things that you see on your way to school, walking or driving, and then just encouraging talk, because that's something, again, that we really, really encourage at Park Spring. And then there's just a final quote on here, that one of the greatest gifts adults can give is to read to children. You know, we can open up lots of imagination and new worlds to children just from reading them storybooks. So I'm just going to share my screen briefly now, just to talk you through the new ebooks that we have got this book home, but you have all got an individual login for your child to get onto the Collins Big Cat ebooks. And as teachers in school, all of our class are on there, and we will allocate books weekly. So as I've already said, that book that your child has read in school, we will then put that, allocate that to them on this website, and then you will be able to read the book at home. Okay, so there'll just be one book a week that we will allocate on here. So we'll send the letters out next week that has your user to go on, you type in the username and password, and then this page will come up. Okay, so you'll have a library page that will look like this, and obviously in week 1 you'll just have the one book on there. So then you click read, and then you just flick through the pages. So the inside cover is it's exactly the same as the books that we've got in school. So you can have a look at some of the words that are going to come up in the book, look at some of the words and all of that, talk about the vocabulary, think about what those words mean. This is a non-fiction book, so it's got a contents page, exactly like the one we've got in school. And then you just click on the arrow, and it takes you through all of the pages. So it is very, very similar. Well, it's exactly the same, should I say. It's just obviously different because your child isn't handling the physical book at home, but they will have handled that 3 times during the week in school. So we will send that information out to you next week. February half term, that is when your child will start to be allocated an ebook. So when you bring in the level books next week into school, we won't be sending those out again, as we don't do that over the half term anyway. And then we'll be sending out ebooks on the first day back. So I know I've done lots of talking. I hope that all made sense. As I said, this PowerPoint will go on the website. We'll get all of the links on the website, so they will be on under the curriculum heading on the reading page. All of the links will go on there. If you have any questions, then please ask them now. Or if you can't think of anything at the minute and you think of something later on tonight or tomorrow, then please just send an email to the office. But we are more than happy to answer any questions, or if you want to have further discussion about this, then please do get in touch. So if you haven't got a question to ask, you do feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question. But if you haven't got a question to ask, then I just want to say thank you so much for joining us this evening, and taking the time to join us. But we will stay on for a couple of more minutes if anybody wants to ask us anything.
Hiya, yeah. Is the books, is it just a web-based book, or is it an app as well?
Oh, very good question. I imagine they probably do have an app, but I will have to ask and get back to you on that one. But I imagine they probably do have an app for it, yeah. But the information that I've had is it's just a website that you go on, and that's exactly what I've done. Where when I just showed you, then that was a child's login that I had used, so that's just how it looked on the website. But I will get back to you on that one.
All right, thank you.
Okay, right, thank you everybody for joining us. Hello.